I keep telling you, Bonnie, there is no Book 20 in the Railway series, because if there was a Book 20, it would have been adapted into television long ago, but it never got adapted into television, okay? So therefore, there's no Book 20, and there was never even a Book 19 to begin with.
Well, that's because of budget reasons, first of all, and obviously, how the hell are they gonna make a model of the Culdee Fell Engines? They're not very merchandisable, like we said in the previous episode.
Well, I'm sure Britt and David will find a way, because as we all say, we've got to have money.
Money.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Really Useful Podcast, a podcast where basically we just make references for I don't know what reason, to be honest, and everything. My name is Skarloey Diesel. I'm here with my good friend.
Bonnie and Sononso Teapot 7. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Really Useful Podcast, where today we're taking a look at our second original book of the series.
Yep, that's right. The second original book that, as far as our knowledge and everything, Britt and David basically had no interest in ever adapting into television and everything. And like I said, had another book in the Railway series coming up real soon. Had not been adapted into the CGI series and everything, then basically originally there would have been 3 books in Wilbur's collection that had never been adapted into television and everything. But as we now previously stated, as of right now, there are only 2 books. Mounted Engines and this book, Very Old Engines, that have never been adapted into television.
That is true, and it's a crying shame that this book was never adapted, because I would have loved to see what they would have done with this book.
Honestly, honestly, I could see, like, Britt and David maybe doing something like this in, say, like, season 5 or 6 and everything. Basically considering that, like, at that time they made, like, larger scale versions of the narrow gauge engines and everything. But honestly, I could definitely understand why they definitely didn't want to do this during season 4 and everything. Because, like, if the narrow gauge engines already gave the nightmares with caps on and everything, then honestly I don't even want to imagine, or at the same time I kind of do want to imagine, just basically what kind of nightmares that Skarloey and Rheneas without their caps would actually give to Britt and David just by trying to work with them in general.
Yeah, definitely, but still, these stories are awesome. I wish that they would have adapted them at least if they continue with the adapting Railway series stories into season 5.
I mean, yeah, we all do and everything, but hey, you never know. I mean, like, that's what the fandom is for and everything. Basically, we can go ahead and come up with our own ideas about basically how would we adapt the story, like if we were doing this for television and everything.
Yeah, but hey, at least we still have this book, which is still awesome.
True. It is, honestly, this is another very interesting book, especially coming from someone that, again, loves the narrow gauge engines and everything. Pretty much I was actually pretty excited and everything to read a book that, again, was never adapted into television, and just basically see how the stories were. And honestly, back then, and even looking at this story today for this review and everything, I think we have another good book here on our hands and everything. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, so let's go ahead and, as always, talk a little bit about the history behind this book. And the first known history, again, to the 2% of people that probably doesn't know out there.
Unless you're new to the Thomas, unless you're new to the Thomas fandom or something.
That too. But pretty much, yes, this book was made as a way to celebrate the 100th birthday of the Skarloey Railway and everything.
That is true. That is 100% true.
And basically, from what I understand, based on what Barney told me, this is also the book where pretty much Wilbur also just suddenly retired from his clergyman duties as well, too.
Yeah, this was the last book he wrote before he retired from parish work, in order to celebrate the 100th birthday of the Skarloey Railway. And after that, he moved to a new house in Gloucestershire, where I don't know if you guys seen the documentary that Australia did in 1994, where the river was coughing like crazy.
I think I have seen the documentary maybe once or twice before. It's basically the same title as the book, right? Thomas the Tank Engine Man.
I think it was called The Making of Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't remember what it was called, but I think that was the name of it. It was made during season 4, I think.
Yes, yes, that is right. I do know that I do know that at least one of the documentaries that it was made during season 4 and was released around 1994 and 1995. Basically, just a good full between 3 to 2 years before Wilbur Audrey would pass away. And
yes, this is not the Thomas the Tank Engine Man documentary. This is another mini documentary that was made for a television special in Australia.
Oh, okay.
And in that one, I think that one was released before the Thomas the Tank Engine Man.
Okay.
And that was the one where Wilbur's coughing like crazy, and he's not in a good mood at all.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, you
Yeah,
can
you know what I like to imagine. Pretty much just the producers came into the house and Wilbur Rogers would just be like, "What the fuck are you all doing here? How do you all get into my house? Documentary? What kind of documentary are you making? All right, get out!"
and he was miserable by that time. You can tell that the what happened to him with season 3 was he was still bitter about what the producers did with season 3.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, those who know Wilbur, or at least know good, or at least know like pretty much a good idea between like what the relationship between him and the TV series was like. Yeah, it definitely wasn't good and everything, and pretty much even during season 4 and everything, Wilbur was still like, "I'm not impressed."
Yeah, he wasn't still impressed. And I think the reason why he got so bitter is because the family was sent scripts of some of the original episodes, like Trust Thomas and Edward Trump and the Release Party. But guess what? Even if he said no to them, they still shot them anyway. They still shot them anyway.
Which I mean, like, I can understand why, like, someone like Wilbur would still like would start to form like bitter feelings towards the producers and everything. Because yeah, honestly, at that point, it does. Honestly, to someone like Wilbur, it actually does feel like someone like doesn't actually really care about the Railway series anymore. Just wants to make like merchandise off of the show and everything. Because like, hey, look at this. Like, Thomas is now popular and everything with the kids. We can make like tons of money off of this. So let's make our own original stories.
And by that time, the merchandise was outselling the books. You know, the original books. Like I can give you an example. Ertl was making like £7 million by that time. Ertl, and I'm saying this. Ertl was making a lot of money by the toy sales. And more, as you know, there was also Tommy. Tommy was starting to take off.
I believe there's also the time where Wooden Railway also started becoming a thing, right?
Yes, Wooden Railway started in 1993, I believe. Yeah, so by that time it was taking off as well. And as you guys know, this is another story for another day. But in 1996, just a year before Wilbur passed away, Heinemann Books were selling the children's book division. They had a children's book division, and that included the Railway series. And Britt saw that, and she was like, "Yeah, now's my chance to get the show." So she bought the copyright of the show, and the deal wasn't finalized until Wilbur passed away. So, and just to say this, we're not making fun of Wilbur or anything like that. It's just sad, like the way things ended with him and the TV producers.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a story for another day and everything. But honestly, like, if this little sneak peek has taught you anything, is that like just be very wary about who you're signing your rights off to and everything, and basically make sure that the person that you're working with, at least at the very least, like the person that you're working for, at least like takes your criticism to heart at the very least.
Exactly. But yeah, back to this book. Back to the trivia for this book. Like you said, this was made for the 100th birthday of the Skarloey Railway, and basically around this time, we made a video about this like 2 years ago. The very first piece of Railway series merchandise was released.
Yes, that is right. I believe this is the Percy one.
Yeah, the Meccano Percy. And in case anybody doesn't know about the Meccano Percy, and I don't blame you, because that toy is very rare to come by nowadays. Very rare, and I'm not joking, very rare. That was basically like a clockwork model where you basically wound up Percy, and Percy will go around this track. And unfortunately, the set did not sell very well because obviously there was no TV series by that time. There was only the books.
Yeah.
So the set did not sell very well. So what ended up happening was Meccano decided to still release the set, but they did some changes. They removed the Percy branding from the name. They took out Percy's face, replaced it with the red smoke bots, repainted him all green as a generic tank engine, and they removed the whistle.
So basically, in other words, they gave Percy a very grim makeover.
Yes. But yeah, it's good. It just goes to show that even back then, the merchandise wasn't doing very well because there was no TV series to.
So pretty much like at this point, like pretty much like the books were still selling like well enough and everything, but not well enough to a point where like other people can like start making merchandise off the characters just yet.
Exactly. They did release some cut out models. I don't know if people have seen them. They basically were like cut out. You know what I'm talking about? Cut out models.
Yes, I do believe I have heard of that. I do know, like, I believe Thomas was one of them. I think James was another,
Yep.
if I'm correct. Yeah.
And Gordon was another one of them. And oh my god, those faces are horrible. Like, I'm not joking. They're horrible, horrible. Especially Thomas. Especially Thomas.
Well, folks, if you thought that back then when you were a kid that like the model faces were creepy, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh yeah, you ain't seen nothing yet. Nothing yet. Oh my god. But yeah, 65 was a big year for Railway Series fans. You know, you got the first piece of merchandise ever released for the books.
Mm-hmm.
This book came out in 65.
Yep.
And you also got the 100th birthday of the Talifin Railway. And I think that's it pretty much because and we're getting close to the end, unfortunately.
Pretty much, yeah. Like after this, we only got about 6 more books left of Wilbur's years as an author and everything. So pretty much, we better enjoy this while we can because, yeah, as Barney said, we're getting nearer and nearer to the end.
Pretty much, yeah. But we still got this book to talk about, so we got 4 stories. So shall we get into them?
Yep, let's go ahead and talk about the very old engine. So pretty much, last time I went first with the first story of Mountain Engines, which was again called Mountain Engines. So pretty much Barney's going to go ahead and go first with the very first story of very old engine named Crosspatch.
Crosspatch. Here we go. So Crosspatch starts with Nancy polishing Skarloey, and Skarloey's like, "Oh, not again, Nancy, please." And Nancy's like, "Just a teeny polish. You must look nice for your 100th birthday." And they go back and forth basically as to who's
basically going back to that granddaughter knowing her grandpa relationship, but the grandpa still loves the granddaughter either way.
Yeah. And one comment that Nancy said that she called him a crosspatch makes Skarloey remember something, and he's like, "You know, Nancy, I really was a crosspatch once. Shall I tell you the story?" And she's like, "Yes, please." "Well, come down here. I can't tell you the story while you're just still polishing me up." And then after a while, after 5 minutes, Nancy sits down on the box and Skarloey begins to tell his story. So basically, this story is a backstory as to how Skarloey, Rheneas, and their twins came to be about.
Yeah, pretty much for the first 3 stories, yeah, it's just basically told in like a flashback and such.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised how different Skarloey was to how he is right now. Back then, he was a young engine who only gave a fuck about pulling coaches. If you gave him trucks, get the fuck away because he's not gonna do it. Basically, that's him. That's his old self in a nutshell.
Pretty much. And yeah, he wasn't only different like personal wise and everything, but he was very different appearance wise. Basically, him and his twin brother Tally Flynn.
Yes, and I'll get into those differences. I'll get into those differences in the net story because they play a part in the net story. So I'll wait till we get to the net story. So basically, Skarloey, Rheneas, Tally Flynn, and Dolgoff were built in Whitehaven in Fletcher Jennings. And basically, Skarloey was finished first, and he was sent away on the ship. But because it wasn't the Fat Controllers Railway then, because the Fat Controllers Railway didn't exist yet, they had to use the ship's derricks to get him out of the ship. And well, he was dangled because the ship's derricks were so bad that he was almost flipped upside down. But after a while, they fastened him to a coupling, and he meets an engine called Neil. And Neil is another engine that was released for Ertl.
But actually, yeah, this was something I also found out as well too. Like, not only was he released for Ertl, but there was also a Wind Railway. There was also a Wind Railway toy of him. And basically, if you look at the back of the ticket and everything, saying the bio, it actually does mention that, like, his friendship with Skarloey when he first arrived on the railway. Actually,
yeah, even though Skarloey was a little bit racist to him, but
I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say racist. I think it was just more like, honestly, I think it was just more like Skarloey. It was just Skarloey being young and thinking that, like, oh my god, there's a fucking ugly engine and everything. But it's nice. I guess I can like it.
Yeah. That's what I meant by that. I didn't mean to say racist by, you know.
It's fine.
Yeah, but yeah. And have you seen that illustration where Neil's pulling him and you see that woman is like, ah!
I think actually, you know what? I can imagine just being like, oh my god, the fuck is that? Ah!
Because by that time, do you know why is that? Do you know why she's scared?
Honestly, I'm gonna take a guess. I'm guessing that like this was still during a time period where like basically like people were still not used to trains yet, right?
Yes, and they were afraid of them because of the stories that have been spreading out that their boilers could explode and kill a lot of people.
Which sadly did happen in a couple of cases, especially back then when like the railway, like, because you gotta understand, like this takes place in 1965.
1865. 1865.
Yeah, 1865. Railways were still very brand new during that time period and everything. Like pretty much like the earliest known like railway and everything, like in terms of like ever and everything, I believe was like during the 1830s and such.
Yeah.
So pretty much like this is still like a good like 35 years that the railway had just been formed and Skarloey had just been a part of this new railway and such.
Yeah, and also there wasn't the steam engines weren't perfect back then, you know, because of that. They got better over time, but they were still trying to perfect them basically.
Pretty much. I mean, like some work and everything. Some got the jobs done just well. Others, like, let's just say that Skarloey is not too far off when, like, a couple of steam engines were a bitch to work with.
Pretty much, but we'll get to that in a second. So they put him in a siding after he arrives to what will eventually become his line. There weren't many people because there were plenty of people, but they weren't used to engines.
Pretty much, like I said, I can imagine like a couple of people coming over there to. Actually, I can remember. I can actually picture like an old grandpa coming up and being like, "The fuck is that?" And his little grandson's just like, "No, that's just an engine, Grandpa." And Grandpa's just like, "Oh my god, get away from me! It could explode! Run!"
which I could see happening because of the stories that have been spreading.
Yeah.
So then,
here, honestly.
So then the next morning comes and some trucks come down the incline, and Skarloey's like, "What's this? There's no engine." Then a workman comes and tells him, "Oh, those are come down by gravity. The empty ones need pulling up though. That's why you've come to this railway." And Skarloey's like, but can't they go up by whatever the fuck you was to say?"
Pretty much the workman's just like, "Well, Skarloey, are you Jesus? Can you do that?" Well, they're pretty much get your ass in the gear, push those trucks up, and until you become Jesus, then you can become lazy, okay?
But Skarloey is horrified because he has to pull trucks, and he's like, "What? You want me to pull those trucks?" And the workman's like, "Yes." And Skarloey's like, "No, I want coaches. Get me fucking coaches now." And the workman just laughs and goes away. Then comes Mr. Mac, the manager of the line, and the first manager of the Skarloey Railway. He is a no shit guy.
Pretty much like pretty much before the thing controller this was another controller that also took no shit from no one, honestly.
And because steam engines were new at the time, he's basically reading a book called How to Steam.
Pretty much how to steam a steam engine. Step 1, steam a steam engine. Step 2, just hope that the boiler doesn't explode.
And basically, he's like, we're going to steam you, Skarloey. And Skarloey's still angry that he has to pull trucks, and he's like, "Can I pull coaches, sir?" And Mr. Mac is like, "No, certainly not." And you can see the angry expression in that illustration. Peter did a phenomenal job with the face. You can see that anger.
Honestly, like, I don't know, like, who pointed this out, but I remember, like, someone pointed out in a YouTube comment long ago, I think it was, like, from the new controller, 01, like, when he did a narration of this book and everything. But someone actually pointed out that Skarloey's crossface pretty much almost resembles that of, like, Percy from the TV series.
Oh, yes, you're right, actually. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I got the book here next to me. You're right. You're absolutely right. It does look like Percy's angry face.
It does. So I mean, like, I guess it's not too far off to say that, like, maybe Skarloey's crossface actually, like, inspired Britt and David to make the angry Percy face in the Marvel series.
Yeah, because it looks very similar to it. Very similar. But yeah, Peter did a phenomenal job with the illustration. You can see the anger in Skarloey's face, and you can tell he's so angry.
Pretty much he's so angry that, like, pretty much he's doing equivalent to a person just, like, you know, spit out their faces, but instead of spitting, pretty much like he's blowing soot up their faces.
Pretty much, and basically Skarloey, knowing that the people don't understand engines, he's like, okay, you're not gonna make me pull coaches? All right, take this, and he blows smoke at them.
Take it, yeah. Take this, take this. Take a bunch of lung cancers, you fucking idiot.
I don't want to imagine what the hell happened to those people that were trying to steam him up. I don't want to even imagine.
You know what I can imagine. You know what I can imagine Nancy just being like, "Wait, you blew soot up people's faces? Don't you know how dangerous that is?" And Skarloey's just like, well, it was 100 years ago, so the statute of limitations has run out, so I'm free.
Yeah.
Just don't throw golf, please.
So basically, this continues for a couple of days, and they call Skarloey bad names, but he's like, no, give me coaches, or I'm gonna keep blowing smoke, and he does it again, and again, and again, and then Mr. Mac gets so sick of him that he's like, okay, you want to be a crosspatch? Be a crosspatch, but we're not gonna look at that fucking face of yours all day. We're gonna cover you up and leave you till you're a better engine. How's that, motherfucker?
And Skarloey's just like, oh shit. Maybe I shouldn't have caused mass murder to those workers trying to start me up.
Have you seen that illustration? You can see the people that are covering him up are like celebrating. You can see the smile on their faces actually.
Pretty much they're just like, oh good, that demon engine is gone. Hallelujah.
Yeah,
and pretty much Skarloey's just like, and actually, yeah, too. You can also see the look on Skarloey's face where he's just like, oh shit, I done fucked up now.
Yeah, he fucked up big time. Actually, he fucked up big time.
Pretty much.
And a little fun fact I'm gonna mention before I finish up the synopsis. Do you know what they're building in the background?
What are they building?
That's the engine shed.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You are right. Yeah.
That's the engine shed.
Yeah. Pretty much, you are right. Yes, that is the engine shed. Which actually, yeah, looking at it right now, yeah, you are right. That is actually the engine shed. That is actually the engine shed, actually.
Yeah, so basically, it was still under construction while Skarloey was being a fucking asshole. And then Skarloey finishes the first part of the story, where basically he's like, yeah, so they covered me on a tarpaulin, and I didn't like that at all. And Nancy's like, I think it's circular, right, Grandpa? But then all of a sudden, some people come and push Nancy aside. It's like, none of my hurt, Skarloey. Please tell us what happened next, please.
And basically, Nancy's just like, the fuck all you come from? And Skarloey's just like, Nazi language. Sorry.
And yeah, that's crosspatch.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm speechless because I don't know what to say about this story. This story to me is a 10.
I mean, I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit and everything. Like, honestly, like talking about like everything that we've covered so far, like I mean, a story as well as like doing a little railway history as well too. Again, this is another example where like Audrey really, you could tell that Audrey is someone that really loves his railways and steam engines and everything. And it definitely shows in this writing overall, because like even back then, like having a story start off like literally a century ago and everything, you can tell that like pretty much like he could still make pretty much like Wilbur can still make stories and everything that happened 100 years ago and still make it fit within his own railway series as well too and everything.
Pretty much, yeah. And I was gonna say, you know. Mm-hmm. It's so jarring, going from current Skarloey, who is, you know, the nicest engine and who's not afraid to have fun from once in a while, to a different Skarloey that's just a fucking asshole and refuses to do the work even after they try to steam him up.
Pretty much, like almost if you kind of think about it, like this young version of Skarloey and everything, it's pretty much he's a mixture of like Thomas in a sort of sense, and that like. And then, like, you know, he's bouncy and everything. He could be cheeky sometimes and everything. But he also has a little mixture of Gordon as well, too. We're pretty much like he just wants to pull coaches and not trucks, so, like, for the rest of his life and everything. And pretty much when he doesn't get his way, like, that's pretty much when, like, there's also a little bit of an element of sad story of Henry, where, like, pretty much, like, because Skarloey's not getting his way and everything, and continue to be like, you know, a bratty little brat and everything. That's why Mr. Mac is just like, okay, well, how about I shut you up there for a long while until you learn how to behave? How do you like that, bitch?
At least they did the right thing, and you know they put him on their tarpaulin, because I would have been.
Honestly, can you imagine? If Mr. Mac took a look at those bricks that was building the shed and everything, and he took the work where it's just like, hey, come over here. instead of building a shed, how about we trap this engine in those bricks for all eternity? Okay. I could just imagine. I could just imagine the horror look on Skarloey's face and everything. And honestly, that doesn't make Skarloey like look at Mr. Mac and be like, "Oh, actually, you know what? How about I go and pull those trucks up, okay? We don't need or whatever the shit you guys call it. Let's go pull those trucks down, please."
At least he had the audacity to put him under a tarpaulin, because I think Wilbur learned his lesson from Sad Story of Henry. But I'll cut Wilbur some slack there, because to be completely honest with him, Sad Story of Henry was never meant to be published. You know, it was meant as a bedtime story. So
pretty much, yeah.
So I'll cut him some slack there.
But yeah, going back and everything, like, but yeah, there's a lot of great humor, like, in this first story alone, especially right in the beginning, like, because again, we get to see another moment between like Nancy and Skarloey, like, that's still very wholesome and still makes me laugh, like a couple minutes here and there, like pretty much just reading like Nancy. Basically bugging Skarloey again about being polished and everything to look nice for his 100th birthday. And Skarloey is just like, "Oh, I am nice because you give me a polish almost every 5 minutes, all right? Why don't you calm down once in a while, okay?" and then also as well too, like again, like pretty much I also laugh as well too, like anytime like Skarloey mentioned like, "Oh yeah, I know an engineer named Neil. He was ugly as fuck, but he was nice and such. We got along very well." And that one also got a chuckle out of me, and especially the ship part as well too. When literally they're like dangling Skarloey at the very tip top of the ship as well too. Like I said, I don't blame Skarloey for being so pissed off and everything as well too, because like if I was in Skarloey's place, especially after being built, I would just be like, "If you motherfuckers drop me and everything, you know you're gonna be wasting a lot of money, right?" Yeah. Honestly, I don't have too much to say on the story as well either. Like for our first story and everything, to set up like to basically set up Skarloey's past and everything, as well as like learning about like how far Skarloey has come. Like from like you said, for being like this like young, very like almost cocky and bratty little engine and everything, to like this wise old grandpa and such that like still likes to have fun once in a while, but now does it more wisely and everything as well too. Like. Honestly, it is a very interesting story to read and everything. And like I said, there's like tons of funny moments within the story as well too. Like not just in the lines, but in an illustration as well too. Like and just again like having Wilbur take like something that like was actually very common about like I said, people not understanding engines properly back then and everything, and just trying like their darnest to steam them up and everything, but they can't just get them to work no matter how hard they try. Again, basically taking that and using that as being like Skarloey's personality and that basically like, you know, he's not starting up because he can't start up, but he doesn't want to start up because he wants coaches and not trucks and everything.
And as well, you know, like he knows that the people are still confused about how to use it. That he's taking advantage of that. And he's like,
pretty much, which again, like that's actually real clever writing right there and everything from Wilbur's part and everything. Indeed. So honestly, you know what? I do agree with you and everything. I'm not going to give it a 10 and everything, but honestly, this story actually deserves a perfect 9, honestly. Like a 9 out of 10 out of me and such.
To me, I was going to say, the reason I give it a 10 is because, to me, to this day, you know, the first time I read it in 2017, in early 2017, this story, you know,
yeah,
I still remember it from top to bottom. Like, I still know the lines. I still know exactly what happens, you know. And to me, if a story is that memorable, let me see, 2017 to 2024.
7 years actually.
7 years. After 7 years, you're doing a great job, and you know.
I mean, hey, that's a great excuse right there to basically give the story a 10 and everything as well too, because like yeah, like you said, like, you know, the story is really that great to where like you remember like just everything about it as well too, and you can still like have a good laugh and not only have a good laugh, but just like still enjoy the story even after 7 years later. Then basically, yeah, this story is definitely doing something right at the end of the day, and for good reason.
Indeed, and also I love how different Skarloey's personality, you know, is in the backstory compared to how he is now. You know, like I said, it's jarring going from current Skarloey to old Skarloey. It's just jarring in a good way. In a good way.
It is definitely in a good way as well too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it for Cross Path. So shall we move on to the second story, Bunking Bronco?
Yep, let's go ahead to the second story, Bucking Bronco.
All right, Bunking Bronco. All right, so in the second story and everything, after a crowd of people comes over and begs Skarloey to tell them the second part of the story, Skarloey doesn't question how they got into the railway in the first place. So he's like, oh, "Okay, yeah, I'll tell you the second story, strangers." So pretty much Skarloey goes ahead and continues where he left off, and basically, how long was it again that they said? I think it was just like what, a few days or something that Skarloey was covered up.
It was it doesn't say. He says I was lonely and miserable until at last the manager came.
Okay. Okay. So at least timeline purposes, I'll just say it's like a few days to maybe like a few weeks or something. But basically, long story short, that yeah, eventually like the manager, Mr. Mac, finally like uncovers the tarp, and he's just basically like, "So, are you gonna be a good little boy now? Or are you gonna steam us up? Or are you gonna keep giving us lung cancers?" And Skarloey's just like, "No, I'll behave. All right, I'll behave. It was actually very lonely in here and quite dark." And pretty much Mr. Mac's just like, "Good." Because I actually asked someone in here that actually knows how to work trains properly, Mr. Bobby and everything. And basically, I believe Mr. Bobby was the one that built Skarloey, correct?
Yeah, he was one of the ones that helped build him in England.
Yeah. So pretty much as soon as Mr. Bobby came over and everything, him and Skarloey actually got along very well as well too. So basically, no matter what and everything, like basically, as long as Mr. Bobby was controlling Skarloey and everything, Skarloey got the job done very well actually. Like pretty much with him and Mr. Bobby, they were able to shunt the trucks, to basically help build a line and everything. And by the time the line was built and everything, that's when Rheneas finally came to the Skarloey Railway as well too. And basically, right off the bat, pretty much Skarloey and Rheneas definitely had some different personalities. Where pretty much Rheneas in his younger days, while Rheneas does still have some wisdom here and there and everything, you can say that Rheneas has a bit of his own little temper tantrum as well too. Not really much temper tantrum, in that like basically he's like Skarloey where he refuses to do the work and everything. But basically he's one of those ends where it's like you don't want to make him angry. If you make him angry, you better watch out. And that's basically something the trucks learned the hard way as well too. When they try to play tricks on Rheneas, when compared to Skarloey, they could easily play tricks on Skarloey and everything because like basically Skarloey won't do too much to them.
And he's the more naive of the two.
Pretty much, yes. Well, which pretty much with Rheneas actually has a little bit more street smart, shall we say? So he definitely knows like. So he definitely knows when to keep himself in check and everything, and he knows how to do a good job as well too. It's just like I said, like he has a bit of a temper to him as well too. So yeah, basically right off the bat, like there's definitely a bit of a personality differences between like Skarloey and Rheneas, which we'll get into later on and everything, and we'll definitely get into in the next story as well too, because yeah, basically the next story actually plays off those differences very well in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, anyway. Absolutely.
Yep. So anyway, by the time that the line has opened up and everything, basically a group of people and everything, especially like railway, I believe a few railway inspectors, right?
Yeah, it's a director's train basically.
Yeah, director's train. So basically, Skarloey tells Rheneas that like, hey, I'm gonna pull the director's train and everything, and Rheneas is just like, you're not gonna bounce all day long, are you? And Skarloey is just like, no promises. and basically after that, Skarloey went and gets the coaches, which yeah, even 100 years old, like they still have the same old coaches. Ruth, Lucy, Jemima, Angus, and Beatrice, and all that and everything. And pretty much, again, there's another funny moment right here where pretty much, I believe it's like Ruth, right? Or Angus.
It was Beatrice.
I believe it was Angus, actually.
Agnes. It was Agnes, the one that says, Agnes. Who is it?
Yeah. So basically, out of all the coaches, Agnes is the one who's just be like, be on your guard, all right? This little bastard might actually try something. And again, like it was also a cute little funny moment where like, where Beatrice is like, but the car's already here, silly. Which again, I'll admit, it does get a little chuckle out of me, just like hearing that and such. But yeah, so as soon as like Skarloey gets the train to the platform and everything, he goes around, and basically they start the journey as well too. And Agnes is still like basically keeping a watch on Skarloey. So Agnes and the rest of the coaches keep an eye on Skarloey just in case if he tries any funny business and such. But at first, so far and everything, the train is actually going pretty smoothly. it's going pretty smoothly and such. There were no issues so far. Skarloey actually didn't bounce too much during the train ride and everything as well too. And so far, the coaches are starting to trust him. But then trouble starts when Mr. Mack and everything, or at least the manager, came to the platform as well and took a look at how Mr. Bobby was driving Skarloey, and he was just like, "Oh, that actually looks very easy. Do you mind if I give him a go and everything?" And Mr. Bobby's just like, "Sure, I don't see how this could actually go wrong in any way. Go ahead, drive my engine." And basically, as soon as Mr. Mack and everything gets in control of Skarloey and everything, that's when Skarloey starts to bounce as well. And being scared and frightened and everything, like Mr. Mack very quickly, like closes the regulator and everything, but he closed it too fast and everything. And Skarloey accidentally bumped the coaches and such. And Egg is just like, "Oh, so you want to be that kind of engine? Get him, girls!" And basically, Skarloey bounced so much and everything that pretty much by the time they got to the station and everything, Mr. Bobby is just like, "Wait, where's Mr. Mack?" And he took a look in the bush, 2 legs were sticking out. Basically, it was like a Tom and Jerry cartoon where basically like 2 legs are sticking out and just waving back and forth on the bush and everything. And Skarloey's just like, "Oh, I'm so boned, aren't I?" And pretty much, yes, he was. So pretty much, as soon as Mr. Mack, like, surprisingly was unharmed and everything, as soon as Mr. Mack came out and everything, he took a look at Skarloey, just like, "Never again." And basically, during the rest of the ride and everything, basically, Skarloey's been put to the shed and such, and instead, Rheneas was the one that took the director's train.
The directors were also, they complained that they were also bounced, and they were like, "Yeah, this engine fucking sucks. Get them the fuck out of our sight now." That
too. Which does upset Skarloey and everything because, because in a way and everything, like. Because in a way and everything, he did try to behave as well.
It wasn't his fault, actually. It wasn't his fault. The reason why he was bouncing is because he had at the time he was an 040, and because he was an 040, he bounced about because he was missing a back wheel, to keep him steady.
Yes, and pretty much also because with the way like Mr. Mack was handling Skarloey as well too, that basically only made the bouncing even worse as well too.
Yeah,
so pretty much, and actually, it's a good thing too, because even Mr. Mack realized this as well too, because basically he came up to Skarloey, and Skarloey was just like, "Oh, please don't send me away, sir. I did try to behave and everything. I didn't mean to bounce the way I did." And Mr. Mack's just like, "Nah, Skarloey, it's all right. I'm sorry I was cross. I was just having a bad day. All right. Actually, I was at fault as well too. So you know what? How about I make it up to you and let the managers come and inspect you, okay?" And Skarloey was just like, "Oh, thank you so much, sir." So, but the good news is, Rheneas actually performed very well with the people, with the director and the people as well too. That the manager was just like, "You know what? Like, you're still gonna need some improvements here and there, but actually, you will do very well for this railway." And then pretty much after the director got done with his review on Rheneas, that's when it came to Skarloey and everything. And pretty much even the director was just like, "You know what? Skarloey's not really a bad engine. He's just going to need some massive improvements and such. My thoughts to you, gentlemen, is give him a new wheel and everything. And you know what? How about we give him a new upgrade as well too? I think he definitely deserves it after having a shit day and everything."
I think everybody knows what that other upgrade is, but we'll wait until the next story.
Yeah, we'll wait till next story. And pretty much after that, that's where the story ends as well too. So honestly, Punky Bronco, this is actually another very good story in my opinion. And honestly, like, I really do love on how Wilbur like not only took a little bit of inspiration about like what happened to Skarloey during his like first day of pulling the director's train as well too. But I also like the new twist that he took as well too with this story because usually with stories like this and everything, like usually for the most part, not all the time, because I believe it has happened before a couple times. But usually, like beforehand and everything, like whenever an engine got into trouble and everything, or like start doing something they weren't supposed to, usually all the blame is mostly directed at the engine itself, because like sometimes for good reason as well too, like because basically either the engine's like too cocky for their own good.
I'll give you an example.
Or pretty much. Go ahead.
I'll give you an example. Let's take Gordon for example, off the rails.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, off the rails. Yeah. Because this was something like Gordon and everything, and like he started bouncing as well too. Like pretty much if Gordon did that on purpose and everything, and he knew like what he was doing, then yeah, he would definitely get a justified punishment right there, like for basically doing something that like he knew would get him into trouble at the end of the day, but he didn't care. Like he just didn't want to do his dang job and such.
Exactly. Then we also have
And actually, yeah, we also have something like Percy Takes the Plunge, where basically Percy knew that like there was danger at the other end, but he didn't care. Like he wanted. Basically, he wanted to see what would happen, like if he would have passed the danger board. So much so that he actually asked the Trollocs to push him, or at least bump him, like on purpose and everything as well too. And as soon as Percy found out like what kind of danger he was in, he immediately regretted his decision as well too.
and he's absolutely lucky that what happened to him in the story it was not the same thing that happened to the engine in real life. He's lucky.
Pretty much. He was also lucky as well too that he got saved at the end of the day, like literally at the end of the day too, with the crane as well too. So
Pretty much.
yeah, pretty much. But here in this story and everything, like Skarloey didn't really mean to bounce on purpose at the very least, like. Because like yeah, you could definitely tell in the story like he was trying so hard to be like a good engine as well too, and basically yeah too. While Skarloey is still cocky like in some ways and everything, and still naive as well too. You could definitely tell that definitely in this story he definitely meant well. Like he definitely meant no harm. He didn't want to bounce on purpose just to show off. Like the only reason why he bounced and everything was because like Mr. Mac was being a little careless like with Skarloey, and because of that, like in a way with like. Skarloey was bouncing as well too. Mr. Mac panicked and such, and because of his panic and everything, that caused the coaches to also like bounce as well too with the directors inside and everything. And I mean like pretty much like instead of having the full blame being on with Skarloey and everything, like pretty much I actually do really like on how Wilbert again like gives us a nice little twist, a nice little change of pace, with basically saying that the whole incident wasn't entirely Skarloey's fault. I mean, like, yeah, Skarloey got a little too naive and everything, and he definitely was being careless throughout the story and everything. But again, it's not like he was doing this on purpose. And Mr. Mac realized that he was like, basically when he came up to Skarloey, he was just like, hey, you know what? You did actually try your best. Maybe I was being a little too harsh with you. So you know what? When the director comes in, we're gonna look over you and see what we can actually do for you, so you can have another chance. Which is actually pretty nice, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, sadly, this is something Christopher fails at. What I mean by that is, sometimes an incident that happens isn't an engine's fault, and they still get the blame for it, which is frustrating, very frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, like I can imagine and such. So, pretty much, I can only imagine just what kind of stories I'm going to be waiting once we get to the Christmas stories.
Just you wait till we get to the finale book. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh boy. But yeah, other than that, again, there's another good laughs within the story as well too. Basically again, like the whole like conversation between Skarloey and the coaches. Again, it's very funny. I actually really do like and how I'm pretty much how Agnes is the one that's just like, I am watching you. I don't trust you one bit. I don't know, like just like little interaction between her and Skarloey, like especially with how Skarloey treats his coaches like. Right now to this day and everything, I really want to know, like, I mean, like outside of like the spoilers, the what upgrade that we're gonna see in the next story. But I would really like to know, like, what really caused basically what really caused Agnes to have this like 180 to where like she completely trusts Skarloey now, and now Skarloey is the one that's just like, Agnes, were you being a rude little coach again? And Agnes is like, oh no, Skarloey, of course not, Skarloey, me, that rude, never. But yeah, honestly, I don't have really. Oh yeah, too, and again, like the part where like Mr. Mac's feet was sticking out of the bush as well too. Again, just that illustration alone as well too. Like just seeing the feet sticking out, it's actually pretty funny. So I do actually have to give major props to the illustrators for doing that as well.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
It was. It definitely was. But yeah, in terms of like bunking Bronco and everything, I don't have too much to add on the story and everything. It's very well written and everything. And again, like I definitely do love a little change of pace on like not really entirely putting the blame on Skarloey. Like pretty much it's a story where like pretty much everyone is kind of like at fault, like what happened in the incident, and honestly, just seeing Mr. Mac having a change of heart and like wanting to give Skarloey a second chance, and even admitting that like he was also at fault as well too. It's actually very sweet that. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give the story another 9. Why not? It deserves it.
Well, for me, Balking Bronco, I think it's an excellent story. I think it's also memorable. Even after 7 years, I still remember exactly what happened with this story.
Me, me too, honestly. At the very least, I do actually know about the premise, about the story.
Yeah, and something I was, excuse me, something I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
mention that while I was reading it earlier today is
Mm-hmm.
that I found it so bizarre that it's kind of like Skarloey and Rheneas, switched personalities in a way. Like Rheneas is the more wiser of the two, and Skarloey's like the naive one. You think that Skarloey be the wise one, but no, he's the naive one. While Rheneas is basically Skarloey, old Skarloey, just from the old
Or pretty
days.
much Renee is just like Skarloey, stop bouncing, okay?
Pooh, whatever, you asshole.
Pooh, whatever, you grandpa. Grandpa, I'm only 1 year younger than you, all right?
And
But actually, yeah. I mean, like, I know some people are a little baffled about that, but like, you'd be surprised, like, because actually, like, there are a couple of siblings out there where, like, we're pretty much the youngest sibling seems a lot more mature than the oldest one at times.
and you know what's a good example of this?
Hmm.
Flying Scotsman with Gordon.
Oh yeah,
Gordon was built first, but Flying Scotsman was built later. And Scotsman treats Gordon like his little brother.
pretty much. I mean, pretty much, yeah. That is true. That is true.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so I found it so bizarre that like Rheneas is the wiser of the two, while Skarloey is the naive one. It's just so bizarre, but it's cool.
It is. It is definitely really cool. Which honestly, honestly, that is a nice little change of pace as well too. Because pretty much you would think like with two young engines and everything, you're gonna have one that's like very naive as well too, and then another one that's like not only naive but a lot more reckless as well too. Like honestly, like you think Rheneas probably would have been like Duncan in a sort of sense, but instead no, definitely at the very beginning, you could definitely see that, like, again, like, minus the little anger issues that Rheneas has. And again, that is something we're definitely going to be seeing in the next story as well too. But pretty much, yeah, it is very surprising that pretty much like Wilbur wrote Rheneas like right off the bat on like being this like wise engine right off the very bat, especially having him giving Skarloey the advice about being careful with his bounces before he pulled the train and everything.
And Skarloey being the naive one, he's like, whatever, bitch.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna take the coaches out. Okay, bye, Dad.
So for me, Bucking Bronco, this is tough because I love this story as well. To me, Bucking Bronco, I will admit, it's not as funny as well. It is still funny, but not as funny as Crosspatch.
Yeah. I do agree with you right there. Like I said, there are some funny moments here and there, but honestly, this is more like a. Honestly, you could chalk up Bunking Bronco to be more like a slice of life / adventure type of story if you want it.
Yeah. So after thinking about it, I'm also gonna give it a 9 as well.
Hey, not bad, not bad at all.
Yeah. So all right, next up we got
Stick in the mud. Speaking of sticking in the mud, aka Rheneas, let's talk about Rheneas.
Yeah, here we go. Stick in the mud. So Skarloey came back from the works after the inspector told him about the upgrades. He came back with 6 wheels and a cab.
Yep. Which apparently, according to Mr. Mack, the cab was actually a very new thing was actually a very latest thing for a couple of engines back then.
And he's correct. And he's correct
Yeah.
about that.
He was. Actually, just something I was always curious. Basically, when did cabs like start to become like a mandatory feature for engines and such?
I think around the 1870s is when they started becoming more common, and then after that it became a requirement.
Alrighty, yeah, that sounds about right.
So basically, Skarloey gets a new cab, and and as soon as the coaches see him, they're like, such a handsome engine. We're so glad to have him back. And that basically, and that
Yes, we're so glad to have him back. And I literally forgot that we tried to bump him off the rails earlier because he was fucking ugly and he tried to hurt us.
and that basically cracked his ego up to 120%.
Pretty much. Even Rheneas would never says because pretty much as soon as Skarloey told his side of the story about getting the cap, Rheneas was just like, oh yeah, it cheered him up way too much.
Oh yes, I remember exactly what happened with that. And Skarloey was like, oh yes, Go ahead, Rheneas. You can go ahead and tell them. And so basically, Rheneas tells his side of the story, which is interesting. You know, the previous two stories was Skarloey telling the story, but now it's Rheneas telling the story, which is interesting.
It is, which honestly does make sense and everything, because yeah, this book is made to celebrate both Skarloey and Rheneas' 100th birthday as well too. So it would make sense to actually have Rheneas tell his side of the story about what it was like working in Skarloey Railway when he was young.
Definitely. So Rheneas tells his side of the story, where we go back to where we left off, where Skarloey's ego was boosted to 120%, and he keeps talking about that stupid cap for days and days, and Skarloey's like, "You should get one like me and be up to date." No, thank you. You look like a snail with the house on your back. Oh!
And Skarloey's just like, a snail, am I? Well, let me tell you. And that basically, for anyone that's seen Woolly Bear and everything, that's just basically what the whole conversation is like between Skarloey and Rheneas.
Yeah, basically they argue until they end up back to back in the shed. Basically.
Pretty much they're going back to back. Pretty much both answers were just like talk to the butt.
And basically, yeah, this is what we mean by Rheneas having a bad temper. Like, you piss him off, this shit happens.
I mean, yeah, and honestly, again, even though Rheneas still had his wise moments in his young days and everything, pretty much you can even see in this story, which Barney will explain in a little bit, that pretty much Rheneas in his younger years was also the type of engine to hold a couple grudges as well too.
Oh yes.
Especially if you were the type of engine, pretty much if you were the type of engine that pissed him off to begin with.
Yeah, totally. But anyway, a couple days pass and the weather gets bad, and one Monday morning, it's still raining, and they decide to take Skarloey out.
Pretty much, they took Skarloey out, which I believe is, they took him out just to take some workmen to work and everything.
Yeah, to the quarry, and Skarloey complains like, "You always pick on me for wet days," and
Mr. Bobby is just like, "Well, who's the one that has the cab here, smarty engine?" And Skarloey's just like,
I love this illustration. Have you seen that illustration where he's in the rain and he's so pissed off?
Let's see. Yes, I mean, yeah, he is very pissed off. That's a look where he is not a very happy engine in the slightest.
And then he starts. Then he also starts regarding the cap, basically. Like,
pretty much, Skarloey's just like, you know what? I think I was much more better when I was bald.
But then something happens, and Rheneas is still waiting at the shed when Mr.
I believe. Well, actually, not Mr. Peter. Well, actually, I think it's both Mr. Peter, but I do know that a workman, one of the workmen, in Skarloey's train, basically decided. I like to imagine in my head, he took a chalk and a stick, and basically marking in a way that you roll a boat to a river. He basically rolled the truck all the way back to the shed and everything, just to get to Rheneas on pretty much on a rainy day and such. Just to tell Rheneas to be like, Skarloey, the engine that you kept showing his butt to and everything. Yeah, well, he's stuck in the mud now.
But Rheneas is still better with him, so he refuses to go. It's like, oh, he's a stick in the mud. Let him be a stick in the mud. I don't give a fuck. But then Mr. Peter's like, but what about Mr. Bobby and the Warband? Do they deserve to be stick in the mud? And then Rheneas is like, oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. Let's go help them.
Pretty much.
But yeah, what happened was that Skarloey ran into a landslide happened, and Skarloey got stuck in it, basically. So after they rescue him from the landslide, Rheneas takes him back to the shed, and Skarloey apologizes for being having his ego boosted to 120%.
The good news is that Rheneas did accept the apology, but he was just like, I still don't trust you.
Yeah, he's still pretty angry with him, basically.
Yeah.
But then Skarloey basically starts laughing, and he's like, I'm a stick in the mud after all. And then the two start laughing hysterically. They're still laughing when they come to clean them both, and they're still laughing when the workmen went away, and the workmen thinking like, oh shit, do they have some mental issues or something?
or pretty much the workman is just like, what kind of substance are they taking? I want to take some too.
And then basically the two have been firm friends ever since. And then I love this about the story as well. It's nearly dark when they finish telling the story, and the listeners are stretching, and they are like, "Thank you for telling us your story. Now we can give you now we can give you a lovely 100th birthday next week." And that is Stick in the Mud, and the last story of Skarloey and Rheneas' backstory.
Yeah, that is true.
Honestly, this was a great way to end off their backstory.
Same here. Like honestly, I do agree with you right there. Honestly, yeah. Now that we had the first two stories about Skarloey explaining his younger days and everything, and now to have Rheneas and everything, basically taking over and explain his side of the story as well too. Like again, like this is another story where that perfectly shows like just how different like Skarloey and Rheneas were to each other. Like definitely personality wise as well too. That pretty much is no wonder that pretty much is no wonder they started bickering to each other like right at the very beginning as well too.
Oh yeah, pretty much. And basically, I love the fact that they end up back to back in the shed. It's like,
Pretty much I like to imagine Skarloey coming up to Mr. Bobby to be like, Mr. Bobby, can you turn me around? Why? Just do it. He turns him around and Skarloey's just like, talk to the butt, Rheneas. And basically Rheneas is like, oh yeah? Well, hey, oh yeah? Well, hey, you, driver, put my buffers right next to Skarloey's buffers. Now you talk to the butt. And basically the driver's just like, we're not going to be involved in this. You two brothers sort it out, bye.
but yeah, this story is awesome. It's a great way to end off their backstory, and I love the fact that Renee still has a grudge against him, but then after basically Skarloey calls himself laughs at himself.
I mean, like, yeah, honestly, like, that is a very cute moment right there. Just being like Skarloey being the one, like, calling himself a stick in the mud. And honestly, I like to imagine that, like, Rheneas at first was not going to laugh, but as soon as, like, Skarloey started laughing, that's when you saw, like, a little chuckle coming out of, like, Rheneas. And then pretty much that's what caused both engines to start laughing hysterically together and everything.
Pretty much, and props to Peter, by the way. Props to Peter Edwards with the illustration, especially the one where Skarloey is so fucking pissed.
I mean, yeah. Based on when Skarloey's pissed, and honestly, like the last illustration as well too, and like where you see Skarloey and Rheneas having a good chuckle, that's actually a very good illustration right there as well.
Oh yeah, and especially the one where they're back to back.
Yeah, same here. I mean, like. Like, heck, it's no wonder, it's no wonder why that illustration was chosen as the title cover for the book.
Yeah, and also the first illustration where Skarloey has the cap. That's one of my favorite Skarloey illustrations ever.
Same here, and again, you could just look at Skarloey's expression. Where it's just like, yeah, I know I'm handsome. You guys want to go on a date later afterwards? And pretty much the coach is just like, Skarloey, I don't know how engines work and everything, but you're still too young. You know that, right? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. But, yeah, I don't have too much to say on Stick in the Mud. I think it's a worthy finale to the backstory. And what rating am I going to give this? Let's see. Again, like, it's not as funny as Crosspatch, but I think it's slightly more funnier than a Bucking Bronco. I'll give you that.
It is, honestly. So, it definitely is. Go ahead.
So, to me, I think I'm also going to give Stick in the Mud a 9 as well.
Alrighty. Honestly, for me, I'm going to give this story... Because, yeah, I do agree with you that, like, yeah, this is a very fine story to end off, like, the backstory on, like, Skarloey and Rheneas' younger years. And actually, yeah, I actually do like that now we get a story told in, like, Rheneas' perspective as well. And basically, again, like just seeing like how different like these two engines were like when they first started on the railway and everything. Indeed. And pretty much again, just like using their differences to like create funny moments as well. Especially getting to learn like what Rheneas was like in his younger years as well too. Honestly, like it really did cover a lot of stuff that like that basically like I was going to cover as well too. Like just basically like again like. Just having Rheneas, like again, Rheneas may be wise as well. More wiser than Skarloey was. But that didn't mean like he didn't have his own faults in his younger days. With him like holding a grudge, like especially if you were the one that pissed him off, and basically like it was definitely shown during the middle part of the book and everything as well too. When like Rheneas was just getting ready to like not help Skarloey because of what they did, because of what Skarloey called Rheneas a stick in the mud as well too. Honestly, yeah, I really don't have too much to say in the story. There's a couple, like I said, there's a couple of good moments here and there within the story. I actually do love a couple of funny moments between Skarloey and Rheneas themselves and everything. That honestly, you know what? I'm gonna give the story an 8 as well. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 8.
All right, not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Nope, not bad at all. But yeah, because like I said, this is definitely a good little story to end off the flashback and everything. And now that we're done with the flashback, we can actually finally move on to the actual 100th birthday of Rheneas and Skarloey with the final story. Let me just make sure because
Duck and Dukes.
Yeah, Duck and Dukes. So yeah, Duck and Dukes. Alrighty, so Duck and Dukes. So pretty much at the start of the story, yeah, the story wasn't lying with the title Duck and Dukes because we literally started the story off with Duck and Peter Sam arguing about Dukes and such, where Duck is just like, Peter Sam, I don't know how to tell you this, but there are no Dukes, all right? All the Dukes were scrapped and everything. And and again, I love how in this illustration you can see the horrifying look on Peter Sam's face, and pretty much Doug is just looking at him and she'd be like, I did told you, man. And then yeah, Peter Sam was just like, Dukes scrap? Oh no, the thing controller said, the owner said, the Duke said that he was going to come over to the Telephone Railway, but if he
Skarloey Railway.
Yeah, the Skarloey Railway. Oh, did I say Telephone Railway?
You said Telephone.
Whatever, Skarloey Railway, whatever. They're kind of the same thing. Anyway, but yeah. So with that little bump news and everything about Peter Sam's own Duke actually being scrapped and such, which again foreshadowing.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna give this right now before you continue. The Dukes that Duck's referring to are the Iron Duke class, which were basically all scrapped. There was one replica built, but it's not working, sadly.
Yes, I believe they were the ones that were working on the Great Western Railway, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Because spoiler alert, the Duke, the real Duke, the People Duke, actually mentioned this when Skarloey actually brought him to the Skarloey Railway and everything. But getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yep.
So basically, Peter Sam returned to the shed to tell the engines the bad news. At first, Skarloey was just like, "Well, I'm sure Doug was just giving you a very dark joke and everything." I wouldn't take everything he said too seriously. But then Peter Sam was just like, "I don't know, Skarloey. He sounded very serious to me." And pretty much all the engines were arguing back and forth and everything. And the controller literally had to come in and everything. He was just be like, I have no time for your nerd fight today, all right? I need to tell you guys what's going to be happening tomorrow, all right? Pretty much as soon as he tells Skarloey that hey, you're going to meet the Duke at 10:30 instead of 11 and everything, he turns around and Duncan's just like, if there is a Duke. But because everyone was too tired to argue anymore, they all decided to go to sleep. But then very much at the very next morning, everyone was getting ready to bang pots and pans and basically just start up a loud noise and everything to celebrate Rheneas and Skarloey's 100th birthday. And pretty much all the Skarloey entrants as well too started whistling as well to join in with the music. So much so that the owner had to cover his ears and everything. However, unlike the fact that Charlie actually doesn't mind going deaf and everything. I think he would kind of prefer it at the end of the day and everything. But that's beside the point. But yeah,
whenever I read the line an all metal band, can you imagine if it was an actual metal band?
Like an actual metal band and everything,
like a heavy metal band. Can you imagine that?
And now give it up for Kiss.
Yeah. Now we'll show you. Welcome.
And then pretty much the Fat Controller's looking at the background, it's just like, I think now I should probably move to another railway.
You wanted the best. You got the best. The humblest band in the world. Kiss. And basically the edges are like, what's going on here?
Yeah, Skarloey's just like, the hell's a heavy metal, all right? What happened to good old classical music?
But yeah, continue.
But yeah, anyway, going back and everything. So yeah, so after the celebration is over and after Kiss left and such, basically Sarhano, Rusty, and Duncan basically went to fetch their coaches so they could practice for their parts. Which, spoiler alert, we never got to their parts and everything. So who knows what happened to them? But basically after that, and as a nice little nod to basically a little old engine and everything, basically Peter Sam got to pull the television train again. yeah, so basically with Rheneas going behind Peter Sam and everything, they basically film Rheneas and everything up until we got to the new Skarloey line, which goes around the lake and everything.
Which is a loop,
And pretty much,
basically.
basically basically they see a lot of people coming out to celebrate Skarloey and everything, and that's when Skarloey came in and celebrated, chanting, "I got the Duke! I got the Duke!" And pretty much as soon as the Duke came out and everything, Peter Sam looked at him and being like, "Are you real?" And pretty much everyone was looking at Peter Sam as if he was asking the question if Santa Claus was real. And, but the Duke took no offense, and he basically told Peter Sam that, like, Peter Sam, you know that Dukes are people too, and not just engines, right? I think Duck was actually trying to pull your leg. And basically, I love this line. Like, this line always makes me laugh every time, like, whether I'm reading it or, like, really Russians narrating this, where Peter Sam was just like, "Oh, yeah, well, get Duck over here, and I'll give him some Dukes."
But he's shushed, basically.
Yeah, but he was shut. Like, pretty much Rheneas was just like, "Peter Sam, this is a children's book. No violence allowed." And Peter Sam was just like, "Oh, yeah, right. Dang it."
I always love that line, like, I'll give Duck Dukes.
Pretty much is equivalent to Peter Sam just being like, "Yeah, I may be small, but I'm going to pack that engine a punch."
If he could.
If he could, you know what? I can just imagine like Tiny Peter Sam going up to Doug, and Doug is just like, I could just squish you, right?
Yeah, because Duck is standard gauge, so.
Yeah. So basically, to finish up the summary of the story. So basically, once it's been confirmed that the Duke is real, he's basically Duke gave a speech and everything, opening up the loop line around the lake and everything, and he also gave a speech on. And he also gave a speech about Skarloey and Rheneas, about how it's lovely that the engines are still working together, even after 100 long years, and basically after wishing them like another good 100 long years, or at least like however long the engines are going to stay and such. That's basically when like people wanted another speech, and Skarloey let Rheneas give the speech this time because he already given his speech in like little old engine.
Yeah, and so basically Rheneas wasn't present for that one, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. So basically, when Rheneas gave his speech, that's when like he reminds people, hey, don't forget, like we're just fictional engines and such, but there's real engines like us called Tullyflynn and Dalketh, and they're actually 102 in Tone and Wales. So go wish them a happy birthday, all right? And pretty much after that, that's where the story ends.
And that is very old engines.
Yeah, that's very old engines in a nutshell. So pretty much, Duck and Dukes and everything. It's a very fine story to end off and everything. There's not really too much for me to say, like in terms of the story overall and everything. But there are a couple of moments I do want to point out and everything. Again, I do love that little foreshadowing in the beginning where Peter Sam actually took Duck at his word and everything, and basically like thought that like when he meant that like Dukes were scrap, he was thinking about like a different Duke that was scrap as well too. Which again, like just the way like Governor and everything, like Peter and Governor pretty much like. Captured a horrifying look on Peter Sam's face and everything. That was actually very good. Actually did a very good job on it. Although I will admit, Peter Sam actually almost looked very close to Duck's height in this illustration, especially the rails too. The rails kind of make it look like it's a standard gauge engine instead of like a narrow gauge engine.
I've noticed that actually. Yeah, I'm thinking. Peter. That's
Peter. I mean, like we love your work and everything, but yeah, you done fucked up, man.
But
hey, we give you an A for effort.
Yeah, he tried, and like I said, it's difficult to draw in that small canvas, like we said in Stepney's book.
So I mean, like pretty much, like if you want, like if Peter Sam still wants to give Duck Dukes, I mean, technically he can now, because now he's the same height as Duck. So basically, yeah. Again, I do like that. I do love that little foreshadowing about like Peter Sam worried about is the Duke actually really scrap as well too, which again, like, and actually again, I can believe this because like the book was actually getting closer and closer as well too. So I can actually believe that like Wilbert actually did have something planned to like answer that question when the time came and everything as well too. Which again, that's a book I'm actually really looking forward to when we get to it and everything.
Same here, actually.
Yep. But basically, after that and everything, another really good little moment. It's just basically like, just basically people celebrating like Skarloey and Rheneas' 100th birthday. Which again, unlike the Fat Controller, this owner doesn't seem to mind having having the engines blowing and whistle so loud that he could actually go deaf and such. Which honestly is still a cute moment at the end of the day and everything. But I mean, like, in terms of illustration and everything as well too. Yeah, the illustration was actually very fine as well too. Like, pretty much the whole illustration like really did give off like a good little like, especially when we got to the party scene as well itself as well too. It actually did feel like a grand celebration, like from beginning to end and everything as well too. And it actually did feel nice. It actually did feel nice throughout the whole celebration as well.
Indeed.
I mean, again, the line about like Peter Sam wanting to give Duck Dukes like and everything. That basically still makes me laugh. Like whenever I read it, or whenever Willie Rushton narrates that part and such.
Like, I'm gonna say this right now, Willie Rushton did a great job with this story.
He did. He did. Like pretty much like in terms of like the whole book and everything. Like he did. Pretty much he did a decent job. I will admit and everything. There were definitely like a couple of good moments and everything that like he captured with the story and such.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
But yeah, I really don't have too much to add to the story. In of itself and everything. Pretty much it's a fine story and such. It pretty much gives off the celebration just fine. Like it does feel like that. Like yeah, we are actually celebrating two very important engines' 100-year birthday and everything. And honestly, like yeah, the little even with the little advertisement in the end and everything, the story is still fine. So it's like I can't really think of too many faults to give with the story. So basically for the final story of the book, and for the final story of the book, it's also going to get an 8 out of me. So 8 out of 10.
All right. Well, like I said, I think this story. I think this might be the weakest out of the 4, but not by much anymore. Not by much. I think it's still a great story, and I'm looking at one illustration where Skarloey has brought the Duke, and Peter Sam's looking at him like innocently, like, "Is this it? Is this the Duke?"
Pretty much again. Barney's channeling basically channeling his inner little kid self. We're basically in Home at Last and everything.
Oh, here we go again.
pretty much sits at the top of the head. It's just like, I got a surprise for you, Peter Sam. And as soon as he realizes the prize for Skarloey, he was just like, oh.
Yeah, that was my reaction. Literally, no joke. That was literally my reaction. Like, oh, really?
And then pretty much, you know what? Like, again, like, can you imagine if like Peter Sam took a look at the Duke and he was just like, oh. And pretty much not only just the Duke, but even Skarloey gives him like a death glare, and they both just went, oh. Peter Sam, why are you such an unimpressive little prick? I'm sorry, Skarloey. Okay, like this party's boring. Okay, like wait, where's the heavy metal band again? Give me a kiss. Where's the pizza? Where's the pretzels? Where's the wine?
Oh my god.
Peter Sam, are you okay? What's wrong with you, man?
But yeah, I think this story is still great. You know, I just find it hilarious that Peter Sam just innocently asks, "Are you real?"
Yes, Santa Claus, are you real? And Santa's just like, oh, yes, I'm real. But you've been a very naughty boy, Peter Sam.
But yeah, I think, you know, this story, I think it's the weakest out of the 4. It's my least favorite out of the 4, but I still love it either way, and it's still pretty funny. I will say this: they brought the comedy up to 100% on this one.
They did. They definitely did.
So for me, you said everything I was gonna say about the story. My rating might be shocking.
Go ahead.
But I'm gonna give the story a 9.
Oh, nice, a 9. All right, that's actually not a bad rating right there.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Well, I guess with all that, speaking of which, now let's move on to the final rating of a very old engine. I think you went first with Mountain Engine, right?
Yes, we went first with I went first with Mountain Engines.
Okay, so all right, so I'll go first with Very Old Engine, and for me, so basically the first 2 stories I gave them a 9, and then the last 2 stories I gave them an 8. So basically, the total rating of this book is a 34 out of 40, which pretty much it's a B, an 85%. So hey, yeah. Hey, yeah, I actually was right. This story is ended up getting a B, which actually is a very solid rating at the end of the day, because for a book to celebrate the Skarloeys and even the Tally Flynn's 100th birthday and everything, this is actually a very good way to basically celebrate a railway that's still going on to this day and everything.
Indeed.
Now let's move on for you. I know the first story you gave a 10, and
the rest was 9. The rest, all of them
Yeah,
were 9.
yeah, all of them are 9s. So for you, you got a 37 out of 40, which final rating is an A. So pretty much a 90%, an A, pretty much an A.
Yep, I was expecting an A, to be honest with you. To be completely honest with you, I was expecting an A for this one.
Same here. Like, cause like I said, like before we started recording and everything, like, pretty much I had no doubt that the book was either going to get an A or a B out of me. And honestly, yeah, we were right. Yeah, we were both right about our predictions and everything. So pretty much an A for you for this book and a B for me and everything. Which honestly, like, this book definitely deserved those ratings and everything at the end of the day.
Indeed, and I knew this book was gonna be awesome when we finally got around to preparing for this episode, because to this day, like I said, 7 years later, I still remember Crosspatch from top to bottom.
Pretty much. I mean, like, going back to like when I first read the story and everything, like getting into the Railway series and everything, I was definitely very ready to get to the book as well too, and I was definitely looking forward to it. And basically, honestly, reading the story and everything, again, like I wouldn't say it's like the best. I wouldn't say it's the best book out of like Wilbert's tenure and everything. But basically, just for the book on its own and everything, it is still pretty solid. It is still pretty much a very good read and everything. And basically, again, like as a way to celebrate Skarloey and Tally Flynn's 100th birthday and everything, I think Wilbert definitely made a right call and basically like, hey, like, let's make a story about like how did Skarloey and Rheneas act, like, when they were young and everything, and how was the railway like literally 100 years ago as well too, like pretty much like doing a story like that and everything. Like there's definitely a lot of room and everything you can make for some very good stories with settings like that.
Indeed,
Go ahead, you first.
I was gonna say, while this book might not be the best, it's still top 10 material for me easily.
I mean, I could definitely see that because, like I said, pretty much like, and especially back then, like, pretty much, yeah. Now that you mentioned that, like, back 100 years ago, like people did not understand engines back then. Pretty much, you could tell that Wilbur really took advantage of that when it came to like, not only with his writing and everything, but even with like the illustrations as well too. Like, just seeing like lots of people and everything like. Just looking at the engine and just being like, "Oh my God, what's that? Is that gonna explode?"
Especially that lady in the
yeah, especially that lady, and again, especially that book Mr. Mac was reading about like how to properly steam a steam engine.
How to steam
him up. Just pretty much steam him up and hope that he doesn't explode. But yeah, like overall and everything, like Varial Engine, like it's a very good book at the end of the day and everything. I really don't have too much to say about it at the end of the day. So, so pretty much like the only thing I will say, if you love the Railway series and especially if you love the Skarloey, Railway as well too, definitely give this book a read and everything. It's a very good story. It's a very good book at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, this book also has my highest recommendation.
Okay.
I give this book my highest recommendation. Basically, if you love the Skarloey Railway, get this book. This book is awesome. You won't be disappointed. Mm-hmm. You won't be disappointed at all. To me at least, while this might not be my favorite Railway series book, it's still top 10 material easily.
I mean, like, yeah, like basically, while it wouldn't be in my top 10 and everything, I can actually see this book being in like top 15 at the very least.
Yeah, same here, basically. And well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end for Very Old Engines. This was awesome. Yep. This was awesome.
I mean, it was definitely very awesome and very smooth as well too. Like, pretty much, even though we didn't have too much to say about the book, like overall and everything, like it was still a very good book. It was still a very fun read. At the end of the day and everything as well too.
I wasn't able to read this book until this morning because this week I have some trouble with my car. I had some issues with my car, and every time I was planning to read it, the car just kept getting fucked up.
So pretty much you could say that Barney's car pulled a Skarloey and just ended up being a cross patch to him.
Yeah, it was pretty much a cross patch, basically. Yeah, we could say that.
Pretty much.
But
yeah. So yeah, coming up next. So yeah, those were the only 2 books that were never adapted into television. So coming up next, we are finally going to be back into books that were adapted into television. And coming up next, we are finally going back into, well, technically, yeah, where's Branchline? We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, we're going into a very next book that's going to introduce 2 very cheeky twin engines that again have become stable in the Thomas and Friends franchise. So,
and our fan favorites as well.
pretty much fan favorites. So coming up next, we are going to be talking about mainline engines.
Oh yes, I'm very, very, very excited for that book because there's one story in that book. I won't give away I won't give away. One that there's one story in that book that what happened in one of them happened to me in real life.
Yeah, I definitely know what Barney's talking about. I'm definitely, honestly, I'm definitely looking forward to that story, and honestly, I'm just looking forward to the stories in and of itself overall as well too. Like, pretty much, I'm definitely looking forward to see I definitely am looking forward to seeing to reading that book overall and see like what kind of changes were made. Especially with that one story, because I do know there is that one story that definitely has some like heavy definitely has some heavy changes during the TV series. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Yeah, same here, basically. And well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our episode on Very Old Engines. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you guys want to see more episodes of the podcast, hit that subscribe button as well. Also, don't forget to check out our other podcast. It's a Wiggly Wiggly podcast where we review the Wiggles albums and videos. We don't know exactly when we're gonna go back to it yet, but we'll still consider.
Pretty much the Wiggles podcast is still going to be happening and such. It's just that we're going to have a brand new podcast in the works coming real soon and such. So pretty much when that podcast is done, then rest assured we will definitely go back to the Wiggles.
Yeah, we will be starting on a new podcast, and this might be our last podcast because while making podcasts is fun, it's also a lot of hard work.
It is basically hard work and trying to find the right time to record them and such.
Exactly, and you never know what circumstances life brings. You know how it is.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
And also don't forget to check out our Thomas and Friends season reviews. As of right now, we're still working on our season 9 review, and we're about halfway through the script. So be on the lookout for that. So without further ado, this has been Bonnie with
Corey the Diesel
saying thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next month when we take a look at mainline engines. So until then, folks, take care of yourselves, and we'll be seeing you guys in the next episode.